Hello, welcome back to Gummy Bear Gaming. My name is Gummy Bear, and we are talking Suicide Squad. So, I've been away for a couple of days, and over that time I saw it on opening day, and I just want to run through a brief overview of what's been going on the last few days with this movie. So, critics at the moment on Rotten Tomatoes have it at 25%, which is pretty awful. That's like less than Batman vs Superman, which has problems. But audiences have it around the 75 to 80% mark as a decent movie, and there's a trend that I've definitely seen in reviews of this online and in social media and everything like that, is that movie critics didn't like it. People that don't really typically follow superhero films or comics don't like it. People that expect, because it's current year, to have a progressive and slightly pandering way of dealing with things didn't like it. Those of us that I would fall into the camp of, which are just old school superhero comic fans, general nerds, genuinely seem to like it, and I loved it. And I think that's a thing you look at. I mean, when you look at reviews from god awful places like Jezebel did a review that I only just read, like freaking Jezebel reviewing Suicide Squad as a serious piece of journalism. Check it out. Please use archive. Don't give them any clicks. And they predictably hated it. But the review reads like something written by a complete moron. So they're complaining that there's too many characters to introduce. Well, obviously, we knew that'd be an issue going into it because they have to introduce all new characters. Probably could have done with doing a solo film for Harley and Joker, maybe, or something in the new Batman film with them introduce them first of all. Fair enough. Um, but then you come to the real thing that you see cropping up over and over again in these reviews by non-geeky websites and news media. Okay, which is gun violence, misogyny, and those are the main two things. They're the biggest complaints that most reviewers are making, and you see this from loads of. There are some geek places that have pointed those out as negatives, but generally, you know how the tide of things is turning, and certain reviewers are taking those into account more. First of all, gun violence. It's a movie where people shoot people. It's a movie about guys who will go in and have no qualms about murdering somebody. As in, you have your Batmans, your Supermans who don't murder people, apart from Superman nowadays and Batman. Yeah, everyone murders people. But the Suicide Squad are more in the Punisher style of things, where they will do what they gotta do. They'll murder people. I mean, God, Guardians of the Galaxy, which the movie takes a lot from, kills people on a regular basis. Um, the characters do that. They're Ganora's an assassin. Um, so you have that aspect. The misogyny, it's bullshit. They have very good female characters. They have, not even taking Harley into the equation, which I talk a lot more about Harley because she is as I would imagine her to be, and that's great. I'm a massive Harley fan. She is one of my favourite people in the DC universe. It's great they did her justice. It's great that, hopefully, despite all the criticism that this movie has had, if they can take Harley as a character and what the hell? If they can take Harley as a character and run with her in more movies in the DC universe, then this movie's done its job. It's launched her as a person in that universe and launched her as a character, and that's what you want to see. So big props for that. Her acting, I was a bit concerned about the voice when I first heard it because I'm like I said, die-hard Harley fan, but it sounds right. She sounds like Harley Quinn should sound. She looks like Harley Quinn should look in this universe. They even have a really great little flashback scene. There's a lot of flashbacks where you see her dancing with the Joker in a suit, which is a cover. I can't remember which Batman it's from, but it's a really famous cover where she's dressed in the red and black jumpsuit with the jester ears and everything, and she looks bang on perfect. And if we see that again, brilliant. So they can do her without having her in booty shorts. It's basically it. And yeah, that outfit probably wouldn't have worked well in this film, because why would she go around in that impractical thing in a movie that tries to be grounded? So fair enough. Um, People complain about there's a scene where Batman hits Harley, and that's ridiculous that you complain about that, because that happens a lot, and Batman gives no shits about gender. That's apparent in everything he does. So that criticism I don't take on board either. So overall, really great film. Enjoyable. I was not bored for a moment, but when I was sat there for two and a bit hours, I genuinely did not want to get up and do anything else or look at my phone or anything like that. Which, when I sat through Batman vs Superman, I can't say the same thing. I was bored in parts of that film. This was not a boring movie. This is 2 hours or so of entertaining film. So straight away, and I think anyone would find it entertaining, regardless of how well you know the source material. As far as how I feel about it, I really enjoyed it. I think it was an amazing film, cut and edited into a good film. That's the way it seemed. And I think that was the same with Batman vs Superman. I think it was a very good movie, edited down to an average movie, which was very disappointing at the time. People have got over it. There's a better cut of it available now on the Blu-ray, which is a superior movie. But Suicide Squad just felt they needed slightly more explanation. They needed slightly more dialogue. Um, I mean, some of the dialogue was pretty cringy, although that fits the tone. But for example, the scene in the trailer where they're in the bar and they're talking, when I saw that in the trailer, I got the sense of this very Dirty Dozen, Quentin Tarantino sort of vibe, and you'd think you'd have a lot more witty back and forth between the characters, and that would work really well in this. I mean, you know, they could basically pull this off as a Dirty Dozen movie in that sort of vein, and that's what I was expecting from the dialogue, and it wasn't really there. There wasn't enough jokes to make it, compared to something like, say, Guardians or anything like that. I mean, obviously, it wasn't going full comedy like Deadpool, but there could have been more humor, just to kind of bring the tone away from the dark areas of it a bit, because it kind of felt a little bit disjointed in tone, um, with the stylization of it, and then offset against the actual situation they were in. Um, as far as the story goes, it was fine. You don't need a lot more than a faceless villain to introduce the people, because the movie is about the main characters, the squad itself. And a lot of people complained about the villain being, by the way, spoilers on this whole thing, but the villain is just a big CGI monster that looks a little bit like the Destructor from Thor, who's Enchantress's brother, and nothing really is explained more than he is an old thing that awakens and threatens everything. So it's kind of a throwaway thing just to give them something to fight. And I was okay with that, because the movie wasn't about that. The movie was about introducing these characters and seeing people like Deadshot and Harley, and the absolute standout of it, surprisingly, was El Diablo's character, who was by far and away the most interesting person in the roster, apart from Harley Quinn. Just because I didn't expect to be interested in his character, but he was really cool. I really enjoyed the way they played him off as a pacifist in the first half of the movie, and he had to be kind of come to terms with what he was doing, and I think that he could be another breakout character for the DC universe if they play on him well. He might be dead, but they went, they made him something I want to learn more about his character and see him in more things. So that was good. The things that didn't work as well. Again, I mentioned before about having a better movie that was edited back. I think the Harley and Joker stuff is a movie in of itself that they made but didn't show. So I think they shot and wrote a pretty full on Harley and Joker story set around this movie, and then edited it back to about 8 minutes. And that was disappointing because the trailers obviously bait and switched that a little bit. They made it seem like Leto's Joker was the main bad guy and they'd be fighting him, um, which may have worked better. You don't know. It's hard to say. But either use him properly and give him his own time and give him a decent plot, or save him for later, save him for a different movie, save him for the Batfleck solo film, something like that. Don't introduce us to a new Joker in this way. It just seems a little bit odd, the choice they made. It goes back to what I thought about Batman vs Superman, in that they used too many Superman stories in one movie. They're blowing their wad far too quickly on getting stuff that they know people want to see. They want to see Harley Quinn. They want to see the Joker. Oh, you can have all that, but we're going to put that in this movie and try and shoehorn in things that they know fans want to see in there. So that felt like it fell a little bit flat, and it didn't detract from it being a good movie. It just made me think it could have been a lot better. It could have been a really standout, almost a perfect film if they'd have just changed a few smaller details or edited it differently. I mean, the acting was great, even with the cringy dialogue, it was brilliant. Will Smith was just being Will Smith, which at this point in his career, what can you expect any more of? You know, he plays the same person every time, which is fine. I like the character Will Smith plays as Deadshot. It's great. Um, it was hard to get away from the fact that they were positioning him as a main character when maybe you got the impression that they were doing that because, hey, it's Will Smith. We've got to be we've got to make him a main character because he's by far the biggest star in the movie. But that makes sense from a filmmaking point of view. It makes a lot of sense. So I can forgive them for that. It's just the editing, the way they did it. The villains, although great, you got the sense that they're using these. I mean, the main sort of bad guys, apart from the Enchantress's brother, are these sort of weird black gooey zombie things. Um, which is so painfully obvious that they put those guys in there because, they want to show people getting shot in the face and having katana slice heads in half and that sort of stuff. Obviously, they can't do that with real human beings because it's going to be a PG-13 rating over in America. 15 over here, which is weird, because it didn't seem to warrant that. But maybe there's more of the mature stuff and more of the violence in another cut that we will see down the line. And everything I've read so far suggests that's the case. That when the Blu-ray rolls around, we are probably going to see a vastly different, probably a lot better movie. And that will really be the test of this film, is when we see that version, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. This is maybe want to see that version more. So yeah, the weird blueberry looking zombies, just seemed like there's a couple of slow-mo shots where Katana like slices the head, sort of like that, and you think, well, they clearly thought they wanted that shot before they decided on the enemies. They thought, oh, we want to see her do this in slow-mo. This will look really cool. Oh, we can't have a human skull doing that because it'll be an 18 or an NC-17 straight away. We've got to make them some sort of weird putty. They look like the putty monsters from Power Rangers. That's what they reminded me of. They seemed a bit stupid in that way. They didn't. They just seemed like to be sort of like hit them in the chest and they explode. So they were a tiny bit ridiculous. They didn't seem, but again, I can forgive that because the movie isn't about the bad guys. It's about it's about the bad guys, but it's about the main characters and how they play off each against each other, and that was great. Harley was fantastic. Jared Leto, although he's a massive edgelord and seemed to be chewing the scenery whenever he got a chance to, fine. Heath Ledger chewed the scenery. Jack Nicholson chewed the scenery. Cesar Romero chewed the scenery. That's what being the Joker's about. It's supposed to be a slightly ridiculous thing. It's not supposed to be a serious character. That's the whole point. I think with what he was given, you forget about the tattoos very quickly. The tattoos are a bit stupid, but who cares? His look was fine. I wish they'd have kind of given him, especially because they show him falling into the vat of chemicals with Harley, so they give him a reason to look white and have the green hair, but they don't give him the scar or the smile, which on Leto's face would look really cool, like the really old school, the man who laughs kind of twisted smile. It would have looked a really cool effect. But maybe they couldn't have had him speak as much with that on, and it would have been difficult to portray in real life rather than with someone who needs to speak and appear like a normal human being somewhat and appear more vulnerable. Um, so yeah, there was poor points, there was good points. Overall, the bad points weren't bad enough that you don't forgive the film. You walk out of the theatre thinking, I have enjoyed myself. It is a worthy thing to see. It is better than Batman vs Superman. And for someone who has waited since the mid 90s to see Harley Quinn on screen, it's worth that by far. Everyone else was fine. Rick Flag was okay, maybe a bit more too much screen time for him. Captain Boomerang, maybe more screen time for him because he was really cool. I really wanted to see more of him, but bit pointless. They could have done more with him. He would have been cool to see. Um, as far as El Diablo, he was great. One of my favorite non-Harley slash Joker related characters. Really enjoyed him. Um, Killer Croc again, interesting kind of bits of him, but could probably have used more dialogue or more emphasis on him slightly as well. Um, Slipknot, for those who haven't seen it, again spoilers, kind of pointless. Here's my things on this, okay? Is that we get it that you have to kill off one of the squad. You have to show that the neck bomb things are functional. You see it in Battle Royale, in Hunger Games. Well, not Hunger Games, that didn't have that mechanic, did it? But any of these sort of, you have a bomb strapped to you and one of you will die if you disobey the sort of main character. You kind of have to show that that is a real threat. So I kind of expected one of them to die pretty quickly. Happens in Assault on Arkham within the first 5 minutes, which is a great animated version of very similar film. So that makes sense. But they made it so obvious that Slipknot was going to die. He didn't get a stylized intro. He didn't get a backstory or a flashback or anything. He just got dragged out in a bag, punches a bird, which people pissed off about, but who cares? He's a criminal. Apparently, he's a mass serial rapist in the canon for this, which is a bit ridiculous. Um, so equality of violence is fine, but the way they just introduce him so bluntly, and then within literally 30 seconds, he's dead. He's got his head. He tries to escape, and his head gets blown off, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, the bombs are real!" Um, and as well, the way it happens is he tries to escape up a building, and it just blows up instantly. How I would have directed that, if I ever had the, if I ever, if I was positioned to, is you want to, and this is how I've always seen it done in this sort of mechanic, is you really want to see, say for example, okay, so say for example he was about to try and escape or something like that, or like in Assault on Arkham where they're challenged to leave a room and they say if you leave the room your thing will blow up. Don't fuck with us. So one of them walks out. I think it's the Russian guy in Assault on Arkham. So he steps out and the thing on his neck starts beeping. It doesn't blow up immediately. It beeps and then gets faster and faster and faster, and it's and then it blows up, and you build that little bit of suspense up. And I think that was wasted here. That opportunity to get that little cool moment where the guy's sort of panicking and realizing it's going to go, and then suddenly it goes, rather than just straight out of nowhere, just completely Scanner's head explosion with no blood. Um, a little bit sudden for the way I saw it. So, in summary, and there's more I can talk about on this, but I'm not going to do a stupid long video because there's a lot you can say. Even with its faults, it was a very enjoyable film and probably the best DC film since the Nolan, well, since probably The Dark Knight. It's better than Rises. So that I think is the highest praise that you can expect because no one's going to beat Dark Knight Rises, The Dark Knight. So by far and away the best DC film that I've seen in a number of years since before Man of Steel, and that is all I wanted. That's all anyone I think expected. No one expected it to be a masterpiece. It's a popcorn summer blockbuster. Um, it realizes one of my favorite characters of all time on the big screen, played well and played faithful to the source material. You can't argue with that. You can say yes, it could have done this, it could have done this, it could have done this, but at the end of the day, I pay my $10, my 10 quid. I sit down, I watch a movie for 2 hours. If I walk out of that entertained, then that's money well spent. There's a lot, there's a lot of pedantics, and if you want to talk about misogyny or about gun violence in this day and age, well, fuck you. Seriously, it's not for you, then, is it? One of the things I really liked about it was that it wasn't. This is a weird thing to say, but the fact that it had violence towards women, but it wasn't treated as violence towards women, it was just treated as the overall violence. That's better. That's equality, right? You know, a woman getting punched should be absolutely no different to a man getting punched in that context because it wasn't a gendered act of violence. It was just an act of violence. So, none of it was sexualized, none of it was anything like that. It was just violence. And the fact that it's against a male or a female should make absolutely no fucking difference to anything. It's all the same. Um, and whether it's a woman committing the violence or acting, it hit every base on that front. So you can't accuse it of being misogynistic on that basis. As far as the gun thing, well, it's an action film. People shoot people. What do you want? Not every film has to be anti-gun. In fact, no film should really be, unless it's documentary. Don't try and apply your politics to a popcorn movie. Stop being such a whiny bitch. As always, if you enjoyed what you saw, subscribe, anything like that. It's always helpful. I'm not going to put a score on these sort of movie review sort of things because it's more my opinion, and my opinion matters as much or as little as you care it to. Um, I would recommend the movie, but I'm not going to give it an arbitrary score out of 10 because what's the point? What does that really prove? Nothing. Um, and I think more critics should do the same because I think the less you concentrate on those sort of things and the less you get tired of a Metacritic scores. But that's a conversation for another day. So as always, I've been Gunbear. If you like what you saw, subscribe, like, and comment. Let me know on Twitter at @gunbear_bear. As always, love you. Peace out. Goodbye.